Blog Talk Radio.
Peace, family. It's your boy, Lukey, over here at Life Food, Long Island. And it is such a pleasure for me today to present to you Dr. David Jubb with the universe inside our mind. Dr. Jubb, thank you so much and welcome to the program.
Oh, thanks, Lukey. I'm really glad for us to be doing this program together. And you're so amazing. I think people recognize you around the world, and even people come up to me and they say, oh, my God, you're Dr. Jubb. I heard about you through Lukey. My God, you know. So that's pretty amazing. Yeah, very amazing. And then we've got people around the world, haven't we? We've got a few people down in Florida also. We've got Will Painter, who's really been putting a lot of energy in and helping develop things, and Ethan Williams over in Norway. And we've got Jacqueline Placenta, who is such a dynamic leader, you know, down there in Florida. So, yeah, and we've got you there in New York, and you're really doing an amazing job, and I'm sort of really glad to be connecting with everyone around the world. And it's so amazing that people can be seeing some of the pictures and things that can be put to some of this as we continue on with our program and everything, yeah.
Sounds good.
I guess we're sort of moving a little along the line of having our listeners and our people viewing our show to come to an awareness more inside of what consciousness is and the formation of consciousness. And we're sort of talking about the formation of consciousness a bit in terms of the formation of matter itself, and we're relating this in terms of symbolism and language, which is come together, and it's putting a story together of Atlantean times, of a time gone by, and a very amazing, very sophisticated insight into the world and science, which really correlates highly with string theory and this sort of thing. Yeah. So, well, I guess we're ready to continue on a little bit, are we?
Yeah.
And then I know that as we go through our show, but that it's possible. I'm not sure how people are being listening into the whole thing as it is, or that something is put so that there's a bit of a sequence to things where we are. But in our story, because we're moving toward how sound shapes matter, and then shape is consciousness itself, but that we're talking about this, yeah. But, you know, this is also a nature, and the ribbon of us, the priest which way it is to the sea, and there's all sorts of stories, aren't there? And little ones are told stories and things like the Princess and the Frog and Goldilocks and the Three Bears and this sort of thing. But anyway, this is time to sit back and just relax a little bit, just like you've just had your milk and cookies, and we're sitting down now to listen a little bit to a story of a time gone by, and the very amazing deep insight that came to me. I really, quite radically, when I met Cloud, 2 children, and she happens to be the ceremonial chief that represents the native here in America, in the Indigenous Council that meets around the earth once a year. Yes, so that's a very great deep fortune that I've had, in my life to meet people are very amazing people doing really good work. Yeah. And in the 70s, in the mid-70s, I had a very good fortune to be tutored by a fellow who was an Egyptologist, and his name's Robert Lawler, and he's a very good friend. And over the years and things, I've spent time with him, and he's now writing a book and living in Bass Strait in Tasmania, on King Island. And but he's a very amazing person. But I'd advise our listeners to look into Robert Lawler's work and sacred geometry and things. Yeah. So, but anyway, enough about all of that. But the princess won't really have to have a story, about a frog, and a frog won't really have to have a story about a princess and all that sort of thing, But we're doing what we can to assist to put strange attractors, which are, assembling points in the future. We have these eclipse moments that's coming up, and this is the age of Aquarius, where both hands are being applied to bend and to shape things here, and these strange attractors are assemblage points that put and they draw us forward. And the living spirit dreams are formed into existence, and dream catchers was the way for the people native here to understand this, but that the materials that they would use and the way that they would make their dream catcher, but that this was such a beautiful thing that it would really be catching everything that's practical and excellent and can be applied, and it really just sort of disregarding everything else. It's just like sort of water off a duck's back. And as that dream catcher is compressed into space to be weightless, the spaces that's there in that dream catcher, which like follows a Fibonacci, becomes concentrated and becomes more circular, of course, and energy really is spun this way more. But anyway, our show could be talking a little bit about this and sound and things today. But, if we could just imagine that the particles that make light is the fabric itself, a woven matter, and we can be talking about this as cosmic photon or like cosmic light, and it goes the realm all the way to so fast that you can't see it, it's black, or it's really, really extremely deep blue. But it's incurred of loops, and so the matter really that's woven. So we can just talk about this for a second, because this is sort of like string theory today in quantum theory. String theory is really probably the more advancedness beyond Einstein and these sort of things. But matter, Cloud talked about, and the Toltec and the ancient Atlanteans, they talked about matter being incurred of loops. So that was one type of a way of a shape sort of thing. And then there was loops into loops, and that was sort of called looping. And that's the second. And then the third is a crossed type of stitch. So these are the three sorts of patterns, that universal patterns in the universe that makes up this matter. And the seventh ray, we have 7 rays where we are, and these 7 rays where we are, we're evolving and orbiting around a central point more of 7 stars and these 7 rays, and energy can come in to these 7 rays, within the 7 rays, and it expands them, and the 7th ray sort of pops just a little, and it pierces sort of the 7 rays that are present here in what can exist. And as it does this, it sort of pops it up a little value. But the sound U and the shape of U, and upturnness in building sites such as Mandal to collect points. Sort of U-shaped sounds are sort of vessel shapes in consciousness which combine and hold and build and grow. So that's what that really means, that shape U, and the sound U also causes this energy to become collected. I've used sounds, and the ancient ones were taught to use sound to help heal and bring back proper brain function. And at the moment, I'm doing putting a program together to assist to help people with autism and brain function. And then part of the program, of course, is the use of sound. But ke and kwa and ke is a sound which sort of fills space up. And then U is a sound, and U as a shape is a shape which collects all this energy. And Q and ka and ke are all unique in themselves, but they all are about sound sort of being filled up. And we're going to be getting to M, but what we're doing is just talking about how sound affects this unseen fabric of space to eventually get po, which is a sound which is sort of more square, and that's where you're starting to get a more consciousness of atoms, and things are slowed down enough for us to actually be able to see it and this sort of thing. Generally, in trichromatics, but tetrachromatics people, it's possible for them thoroughly to be witnessing and visually being recognizing immediately these things which I'm talking about here. But sound unclogs and cleans and clears and does a lot of things which we could talk a little bit about perhaps. But where we are, we're just sort of talking about sound, and we're talking about how sound is applied to create matter, and that this is a matter that's superluminal and so fast that it is weightless as a matter, and as it slows down, it starts to vibrate and grows and comes into this third dimension more. But we're going to be talking a bit about this, yeah. So let's see. So far, well, we're getting to M as the sound, aren't we? Was really like I in a way, and is the vibration of its completedness more in growingness of knowing. And we get to that point through various sounds that we make. But M is like a rectangle, and a rectangle combined with a cross-stitch. Cloud showed me on the seminal cloth represented light, which this can all be explained, and it can all become more enlightening that someone can continue to listen to these programs and can fill in pieces for someone where they are. But typically someone would have found a teacher, and then they really would have studied the work of this, and it's remarkable the very things which can come about, of course, certainly clean energy and whole brain functioning and mastery where you are. But then you have sort of a serious puncture sort of happening as you have this several rays. We're just talking about, and that puncturing in the ether, the collection of energy formed called pa as a sound, and that gives everything sort of a body that we can see that sound. But we get there. We're going to be talking about how do we get to the body that arrives here first, but what's out there in space, which is also here, on the Earth. But if this is sounding familiar, of course, movement is the broadest pathway to apply for change, you see, beliefs are being incurred, and how relaxed you are and how relaxed your shoulders are, and this sort of thing. But 98% of all the brain activity that's going on at the moment, and in any time, is sort of proprioceptive, and quietening this down is very important. Yeah. But these strange attractors, we could begin to sort of talk a little bit about feeling, which is first, and then hearing, and then seeing. Body, mind, and spirit. Feeling, hearing, and seeing. In this order, this is the ancient ones and how they put it. And this is the way that it should be put, sort of in logical order: feeling, hearing, and seeing, body, mind, and spirit. And this can be explained. But if somebody really is interested to learn more about this, they can learn more by learning about whole brain functioning. Yeah, and there's a lot which we could pick up that's out there about this, and manuals that's written. But these strange attractors are put by the dreaming medicine people here on the earth, and in Turtle Island here amongst us. And there are very few of these people, of course, because even this insight is so rare, it's unbelievable. But much of the insight that we have is so rare, it's just unbelievable. But I personally feel national treasures should really be people who hold some of this lineage and in knowledge. But anyway, the dreamers, they create these strange attractors, and they are assemblage points that they have dreamed to put to us as they have, that are drawing us forward. And these are put as assemblage points into the future. And that the living spirit dreams these and form into existence by stalking this, and by having knowledge of shape and various stitching and things used, and applying this invisible matrix in a logical manner. We can go beyond prefix set patterns of response to survive, and we can even ever become aware of management of things more for orderliness of the earth and the survival of all the species where we can, and the protection of everything that's existing, and the preservation of things rather than the wrecking of that. But stalking really is the native tradition, and it really relates to the art of making physical a dream. And so then you've got stalkers. So these are the two types of dreaming people, and it's sort of rare that you've got someone connecting with you who really has the mastery both in the dreaming world and a taughtness on this level, that it also really is mastery and can teach people about stalking. But typically a person is very good at one and not necessarily good at the other. So if you're good in one, you're really doing what you can to become a bit better at it than the other. But you know that one is absolutely more your field, perhaps. But the Toltec trained living spirits to know how to do whole body calibration, and that's how it would translate into English. And they taught the medicine person to be able to observe the external body movement of another person, or even a bird's movement as it flew, or an insect, or even an animal's footprint, or a spider web, and they can tell you a lot by this is sort of like an external window into the internal matrix, and in people you could say neurology, and the behaviour very much going on inside that's manifesting the things on the outside, you see. So that's whole brain functioning, that's whole body calibration, which is a component of whole brain functioning. And that stalking is the tradition of the ability to be able to make it physical. So they'd make diagrams, they'd start teaching this, and they'd start documenting, and they'd make this more physical, you see. And this is called stalking. And they'd use whole body calibration, and that's observing body part movement, and that's proprioception. And then you'd also look at this sort really the Native American medicine person was trained to instantly sort of see all of this as a window totally into the internal neurology and these movements and all the whole body movement. And then putting all of this together was called the art of tracking. And tracking is the art of observing the patterns and put with whole body movement, and then one gets a very deep and literal metaphor of the deepest of other than conscious mind and the behaviour going on. Of course, a lot of up and down in the movement, then up and down in life, a lot of swaggering side to side, a lot of being just shifted laterally, and a lot of sort of hip movement, all this sort of puffing up of the chest and stuff. And all this body movement really is what's called analog sculpting, as the body and the house state, which are not placed like a geographical spot. But analog sculpting is accessing these states of behaviour, specific behaviour, through the use of arrangement of matter. I guess that's the closest definition I can come to in English of this Toltec teaching. That the natives teach their medicine people who are more in the tradition of the medicine person, which a lot of that sort of being scattered. But then you've got Cloud 2 children, and everyone who's listening to this is really considered the grandchildren of Cloud. So there you go. But anyway, I guess the Toltec really taught that the mind conceives new possibility, Lukey, as the body is put through its new movement experience, and then that becomes coded in the postmotor cortex area. That only can occur as a result of it being logged first in the premodal cortex area, and to do this, you've got to have interest and pleasure. And then as you have these brain states going, the shaman, she or he, of course, did what they could to assist the medicine person and the learned one come into their full potential. And sometimes that was just instantly now. And then typically sort of things were being sort of chipped away over time, Cool. But anyway, change is really occurring using and applying putting in a new movement experience. And that can be done to the mind, of course. It didn't need to be going anywhere. So people really didn't have to go to heaven, if you could imagine that. That's sort of a bit of schizophrenic. The natives could hear people talking about having to go somewhere, and they were quite frightened that they were not here in heaven. But Cloud told everybody they should really have very deep compassion, because a lot of confusion's been, and then everyone is her children. So she'd be cross with anyone if they were other than doing the right thing to be assisting to help. So, and then everyone has to stay true to this, you see, because all this is sort of something which is being acted upon to be discovered to be so, and this is put for the next few thousand years to come, as the era. But as movement really is proprioception primarily, and that makes up around about 98% of all electrical activity that's going on inside the brain, if you ever look in there. Movement happens to be the broadest pathway for being applied, of course, and wiring in new patterns. See? So, we would use these patterns and things in motor movement classes to re-educate more brain dysfunction and autism, and we'd be training people and that had teaching disabilities to cause them to be recovered of that, so they could tap into how people learn. Are you with me, mate?
Dr. Jubb, I am doing my best to keep up. Like you said, this information not available anywhere. I'm definitely going to put it into my headset for future reference.
We do need people to communicate and speak this, because in the speaking of it, and people listening to this, it's shaping your DNA, you see. And it's getting rid of things which need to be cleared away and replacing this and put with what is original being imbued and coming through more. But anyway, I and N is equal to God, in the original language in English and an ancient Atlantean, and I is this unformed, unborn self. And as you and I are talking to each other right now, it's as if Atlanteans were communicating to each other using these words as we are using them, only, of course, with some modification a bit, but you'd be fairly able to understand quite a bit, The primary form of perception, as is the projected morphogenetic field and a strange attractor, causes these strings to grow from resonance, and as we're talking, it's sort of weightless, and then from this weightless state of an infinity in its super fast state, it slows down enough that you've captured this with consciousness, which expands a little bit the space that's existing, and you've done this with consciousness, and mass sort of grows, and this vibration forms, and Fibonacci fractals are spat out, and Ichteme's web. There's three types of interactions. There's either looping, there's a loop, which is integration. There's looping, which is going over the same stuff and not really exiting to make a shape of things. And then there's cross stitches, and these combine to fashion by bending and binding and then weaving, you see, a form cosmically of photons at this superluminal fast level, and then they slowly come into this third world dimension, and that combine, and as the word po, and that where protein comes from, po, and proton, the atom. But the living spirit sort of bends to wisdom, so change work done bends matter where things are, and then binding instruction is being given you. You see, as you listen to this, you're taking the things on, which is making sense, and then this is the outcome, is a woven newly for you here now into the fabric of this person's life. So ecology sort of is existing. And this is done sort of more through torsion theory, and learn about this, and we can talk more about this. But it shows that there's a microscopic level that does exist, you see, because this really is an energy that only ELF waves and scalar waves impact, and they can go right through several Faraday cages, mate. This is not electromagnetic, you know. Yeah, it's ever faster than that. It's really what, all of this is sort of made up out of. You could say this. But this sound and light woven thread describes a precise sort of form that, and people knew how to float stone and build craft and understood to create the anti-gravity properties and how a tree does this and water does this and nature, you see. They knew how to create deuterium easily in nature, and how nature does it so easily, and they knew how to do these things so simply without all of this extremely enormous amount of expensive continuous equipment, and things. But so they knew how to woven threads describe, which in string theory form all that's depicted, and only three sort of implicit responses possible, and either a congruent or which is loop, or one circuit, or an unable to an exitness in the fabric causes a repeated looping until exiting, or then threads can be crossed, you see. And ectomy is the name given to this great spirit, and 8 legs, of course, of this spider in the Americas, referencing the concept of this weaving a web to create language out of symbols of nature. And the science of the Toltec really has these 3 ways of responding behaviorally. You see, you've either got a simple, complete circuit, and you've got a test, exit, and test and exit, or test, operate, test, exit, which is called a tote. That's one chunk of behavior, and it's complete as if things are flowing. That's a loop. Or you've got a looping and a complex repeated looping, and then things are relying on something else, and things can be not necessarily associated of itself, but only relies upon all of it. And so then you've got looping in behavior as well, rather than exiting. And then, or otherwise, you've got a polarized response, which is a no, don't, won't, can't, which is this crossed type of string. But anyway, let's go back to Atlantis, because existence really in this investigation really is identified by identical information, really. You know, and I think this really, you can see that it's really being drawn from a wide range of disciplines, but that's too numerous, honest to God, to be so consistent in its correlatedness, you know, here as we're talking about in this show. But that Atlantean insight into Native American spiritual teaching and language intentionally put, it really is being used a matter that's underlying structure. But certainly 2400 BCE, a great scientific insight, mate, is going on. You know, I mean, we're living in this modern world, and you people, you know, wandering around amongst us, perhaps have been given the keys of everything a little bit. And then let's hope this can be put to good use. I mean, these people are like guardians of very serious vigilantes, or what would you say, bounty hunters. Yeah. But anyway, 3400 BC, you've got people being taught such a very powerful scientific insight like what we're going over here, of subatomic sort of quantum theory, and very, very deep awareness of the relationship amongst all these componentary forces in nature. Yeah. Are you with me, Lukey?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thanks, mate.
Enjoying it.
Good on you. It's absolutely amazing, isn't it? Anyway, I think we can talk a bit about, you know, shape and symbols. But when native Toltec, the living spirits, engage divination, dream catching is often woven, and in this process, this is associated with catching everything that is beneficial, and it's casting everything else off, and how this particle emerges really, and this shape is emerging from space, non-localized, and as they are formed, the Toltec divination and what's mutually beneficial is kept, and all else is really discarded, and it's being discarded. The symbolic willow tree and the wood, it would just sort of say, pick me, so you wouldn't go looking for that. But that's how things happen more in the native tradition. And it would become caring of itself, to use your hands for it to become participated in consciousness, carrying water very powerfully in what's hooped. That today is really a beautiful expression of this intelligence. And bending and warping fabric causes all that's other than being supported now to completely start to fall in, and you really are, you know what I mean? And this is just happening naturally. But also all else is sort of starting to orbit, you see, and staying close by. Are you there, mate?
Yes.
Yeah, I've got 5% of my battery left, so I'll keep going until I can just, that'll happen, but it's just showing me this. But anyway, of our program, but we're on the phone. But all else sort of is in orbit and stays close by, and what's mutual is beneficial. In other words, it's like a grinding wheel. It just grinds everything else up, except what's like itself, sort of thing. But lips, our lips shape nutrient taken in, and certainly the colour of the plate does too, which maybe that's another topic. But lips shape nutrients taken in, and the shape of the lips, like a flying saucer in a way, is bending and warping the fabric of space with the ends thinned, but swollen, more in the middle. But you shouldn't have really too swollen the lips, because that's lubra lips, and that sort of shows sort of inflammation on the intestine. But that's another story. But anyway, the science of the Toltec really is the nagules, 4 quantum forces. The nagule in the native language really means bring things coming together here, and this condition being put while creating an ecology, and that's projecting and developing this on the outside of itself, this energy sort of being carried out and continuing on. But the Seminole made zigzag patterning in the European cloth. Cloud showed me, and this defined the shaping or conditioning forces the medicine person was taught, and in their language. And I could read, I could look at the pattern of something, and I can read this, and I wear things which, to native tradition, they can see the things I'm wearing actually, just like you wore something with English on it, But the Seminole made zigzag patterning, and this defined the shaping of conditioning force, and that this is the electromagnetism symbol also of the Dogons and in Africa, and there's a lot of similar parallels, I'm telling you, it's unbelievable. But when I first heard this, it was just like amazing. I mean, all of a sudden I realised, oh my God, there's a freaking common language that combines all of us. I knew all of a sudden that we were all connected through a time of Atlantean times, you see. But in the Seminole Yuwipil traditional cloth, pattern ceremonial cloth, has squares and colour, and this represents space, and the dream catchers represented divination and connected, and these circular orbs represented light, and the mouth shape represented sort of warping and bending space, and circles with dots in the centre represented time, and zigzag sort of wavy patterns represented forces giving shape to all, and the cross was symbolic of a whirlwind, dust sort of devil, which we can talk a bit about. But all this was the symbols which was necessary as language to explain how matter was formed, and which we've been talking about, in our talking about shape and sound being applied. But the great deal of insight you can be becoming aware of went into the traditional Yuwipil ceremonial fabric, and that kept this story alive in the Seminole to tell today, and see the sort of events the initiates can glimpse now, more the invisible, a really well-defined relationship surrounding the Toltec insight into the formation of the ether. And then this is sort of a Fibonacci and 3 possible definitive responses as the type of a weave of matter which we've been talking about. But we'll be going on and talking a bit about this and building things as we go a little. But I've got 5% left in the battery. Keep telling me that. Let's see. Where all this sort of has its sort of beginning from these 7 rays inside an egg, but precede this in sort of a toroidal sort of spiral 8th ray that comes into these 7 Fibonacci fractalizing of the fabric of space. And this is this living spirit is this Atlantean time as the living awakener is known to be the divine seer, you see, to an amassing and offering and provision with this pattern. But this Nagul energetically is piercing these 7 color rays and showing you this through technology, which you can look on the internet and see the effect of this technology being applied with scalar wave and this insight I'm sharing with you. But this background note of the universe is, of course, a B flat, and you have to really go on such a fine level to hear this. But there you go. But anyway, the universe sort of forms the force of a figure 8, sort of talked about earlier, because we're in a binary system. And story and pictograms in woven ceremonial cloth sort of was done such that all sort of put together, sort of told a story of creation of I, consciousness, and matter as am, formation, you see, and giving a structure to consider what sort of being balanced being put here. Understanding the Atlantean teaching of I, awareness being incurred here now by it's being defined in this convention within language, using symbols you can see in front of you and hear. But you're beginning to have a syntax to understand this and make conscious now what is being for you more other than conscious. And all this happening that you're becoming more whole brain functioning. And but this geomatrix you fully can be as I am, you see, and a flying fish shape sort of is expressed as it comes to you first. And this cloud set sort of is the shape of the mound at Poverty Point, of course. It's such as this that the animal and the plant life forms all is applied to intelligence, the form of the language, and assist explain the structure of matter, and also cosmological teaching. But the Native American Indians have the bird as the highly significant broad mastery, over the ether and management of the ether. And then the Seneca snake clan, of course, exists. Bear clan, wolf, fox, each really is very highly significant in teaching with and adapting to nature. Where Atlanteans found themselves in these days, setting up chiefdoms and trading shiny bones, and coming frequently and staying with each other. They'd use these foam houses. It was funny. They called them foam houses, but it was like as if it was a house, on water, and it had a bit of foam in front of it. So they thought, well, gee, is that a foam house? It was sort of interesting to them. But the natives are funny. But was a time where creativity really is equivalent to time versus creativity being equivalent to money today in wage slavery. But anyway, we could go on and talk just a little bit about kinesthetics, feeling, hearing, and seeing, and I am is structured. It's made
Dr.
up as
Job,
structured.
can we start next time on that, because it's gonna stop recording and hang up on you.
Oh, beauty. Okay, so we'll go on when we continue on. We're going to be talking about I am, and okay, so we'll go on when we continue on. We're going to be talking about I am, and okay, so we'll go on when we continue on. We're going to be talking about I am, and okay, so we'll